Hello and welcome everyone. This is the information session about the first year abroad program in Rwanda this spring break. We're really happy to have you all here. We will do some quick introductions. I'm going to get my screen sharing here, and then we'll go from there. All right. We'll kind of introduce ourselves and then we'll have all of you introduce each other as well. My name is Scott Ozorowski. I work here in the Study Abroad office, and I'm the one who helps work on this program behind the scenes, helping with a lot of the logistics and planning. And you'll get a bunch of emails from me if you're applying for the program. That is me. And so Liz and Jonathan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Ward. I am the executive director of the International Human Rights Law Institute at the College of Law here at DePaul. I teach our International Human Rights Law Clinic. That it means essentially it's kind of a practical learning experience, so working on human rights issues with students at the law school. And then I've taught in our PACS program at the undergraduate level. This is my first time teaching a focal point course, but I am so excited for it. So it's wonderful to meet all of you, and I'm excited to talk about what the program is going to look like.
And Liz, will you talk about your experience in Rwanda too, just so people
Oh,
know?
of course, of course. Yeah, so I kind of straddled the world of academia and practice. So I am a practicing international human rights law attorney, and so as a part of that, I've done work in a lot of different parts of the world. One of those parts of the world is Rwanda, and Tanzania, so in that region. I worked primarily in kind of what we'll talk about, what is the intersection of international criminal law and international human rights law. So working with the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia and the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. So the focus I'm going to bring to the class is going to be that international criminal law and international human rights law perspective.
Excellent. Thanks, Liz.
Awesome. And hey, everybody, I'm Jonathan Montgomery. Also, I work with Scott in Study Abroad. I manage the short-term programs for College of Law, Computing and Digital Media, and Identities Abroad. And I will be serving as a staff professional on the program. So I'm really excited to be co-leading the group to Rwanda with Liz here. And also, I'll be teaching the Global Hour portion of our course. So yeah, really excited.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. And as we get into things, I'm going to turn it over to Liz in a second. This is a focal point seminar class. So it's typically a class that is for first year students. It's your LSP 112 class that you typically need to take in winter or spring quarter. There are some majors that don't need to take LSP 112. And if you are one of those majors that doesn't need to, you can still do this program and you will get experiential learning for it instead, or it can go towards your open electives. But just kind of making sure you know that that's how the class works. But yeah, I'm going to kind of turn it over to Liz to talk a little bit about the course and about the time abroad.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for being on camera on a Friday and for doing those intros. I know they can be a little awkward, but that it's so nice to hear kind of a little bit about yourself before we jump into a conversation. And I'll also say, you know, if I was a first year student thinking about studying abroad in Rwanda, I think I would need to digest the information that you're about to get. And you may have questions that pop up after this session. And I know Scott is going to probably put our emails up at the end. But I just want to reiterate that, please reach out to me. I'm happy to set up a one-on-one Zoom. I'm happy to answer emails because I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions. And then either Scott, Jonathan, or I will answer them depending on kind of what the focus of the question is. And I'm so happy to see that there are so many different majors in the room because I think part of, at least for me, part of understanding any conflict and the human rights violations that are a part of that particular conflict is approaching the study of it from a holistic standpoint, right? And that is looking at all of the different kind of surrounding circumstances and the context in which the human rights violations unfolded. And so, Shamaya, when you mentioned health, the health consequences that continued after the genocide in many of the refugee camps is an aspect of the Rwandan genocide that really doesn't get a lot of attention. And that's something I definitely want us to talk about. And you'll hear a lot about from those when we visit Rwanda. So I'm somebody that has a lot of caveats. So I promise I'm going to get to the course overview. But another thing I want to say is, I think it's fairly obvious I am a white woman, right? And I want to make it clear that when I teach this class, I approach teaching this class from the perspective of an international criminal law and international human rights law attorney. So the perspective that I'm bringing is a knowledge of the law and a knowledge of working with people on the ground that have experienced conflicts like this, and specifically the Rwandan genocide, and really allowing Rwandan voices, whether it be through reading or when we are on the ground meeting with people, to do the speaking about the Rwandan experience. Okay. And this is, this will be a tension that will come up through the class, but my style is we talk about these things and name them and talk about the pros and cons to me being your professor. But I certainly don't want to suggest that I am, I can speak for the Rwandan experience. Okay. Okay. So course overview. So what we will do is we're going to be really studying and analyzing the Rwandan genocide, but we're not going to start in 1994. We're going to start with colonization, right? And we're going to talk about the roots of, well, I should say, the roots of the hatred between Tutsis and Hutus, which was created really, and exacerbated by colonial powers. So we'll start there, and then we are going to work our way through the genocide, events leading up to the genocide. We'll talk about the various stages of genocide. So another, aspect of this class that I hope you can take away is a framework for which to evaluate other conflicts, whether they be incidents of genocide or war crimes or crimes against humanity, but that you have a framework to apply to other historical contexts or current settings. Okay. And I'm going to welcome those types of questions. Again, I am not a professor that shies away from the tough issues. So we will likely talk about Israel and Palestine. We will likely talk about Myanmar. We'll touch on these, right? This is not the focus of the class, but I do think I welcome questions and intellectual curiosity when we're comparing kind of this conflict to others. Then we'll move into the creation of what is the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. So in international law, we love acronyms. So we call it the ICTR, which if you're in the class, you will become very well acquainted with some of these acronyms, that being one of them. So, and then we'll talk about the jurisprudence of the ICTR. So jurisprudence is just a big, long word. Lawyers love to create language that makes us feel smart. And if you don't know the language, some lawyers like to use it to make others feel like they don't understand. But the jurisprudence just means essentially the case law that's coming out of the court. Okay, so the ICTR was the first international criminal court to try and convict someone of genocide. Some people are a little bit confused by that, and they say, well, wait, what about Nuremberg? Actually, genocide was not codified at that time, and the crime of genocide was not prosecuted at Nuremberg. So those are some things we'll talk about and walk through. I just listed two things here. I am a huge international criminal law nerd, so I could have listed like 60 bullets here. But one of the other really famous aspects of the ICTR, and I would say important to the legacy of the ICTR, is the fact that sexual violence was prosecuted as an act of genocide for the first time. There is a famous case called the Akeyesu case. We'll talk about that broadly. And I guess I should just say as well, I have taught classes in PACS, and I'm a lawyer, so I approach things from a legal perspective. But that doesn't mean that you have to be a legal expert. You're first-year students. And so we will use legal terms. I will discuss legal concepts, but I really try to do so in a way that is bringing everyone along and not assuming that you have any of this background knowledge on the law. And additionally, I really hope that the legal lens is helpful for all of you, no matter what career you want to go into, and is not specifically just for students that want to go to law school. Okay. We'll close the class with talking about the legacy of the ICTR. So the International Criminal Court that exists in The Hague today, really the ICTR, and then the ICTY, which is again the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, they laid the groundwork and the foundation for the creation of that court. So we'll talk a bit about that. And then additionally, I included in the Rwandan experience, what is life in Rwanda like now, and how has the genocide shaded life and the experience of Rwandans today? So those are kind of the main things that we'll talk about. And then in terms of our trip itinerary, so huge shout out to Scott, who has just been phenomenal in working with me, because I want this to be an amazing trip for all of you. And as any good lawyer, I can go back and forth in my own head a million on all of the details. And Scott is such a great person to help me say, this might work better. So I am so grateful to him. And we're all very lucky that he has helped us with this program. So we will leave. So this program happens during spring break. Obviously, the course happens before, and then the travel will happen during spring break. So we will leave March 19th, which is a Thursday. And that is before spring break. But getting to Rwanda, if you haven't been, it takes a long time. So it takes about 24 hours at best. And so if we're gonna travel that far, we should get there and be there for as long as we can before you have to start classes again. So we will be leaving on March 19th. And once we get there, on the 20th, you'll have some time to rest, relax, remember where you are. I always feel like after I travel for a day, it's like, what continent am I on? What time zone am I? Get acclimated to the city. We'll fly into Kigali, I should have said. Then that night we'll have, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. That's the 20th. We'll be traveling then. Then on the 21st, we will arrive and we'll have our welcome dinner. Okay. So you'll have a good amount of time to just get some rest in, and then we'll have our welcome dinner as a group. On the 22nd, we'll be going to museums that are more focused on the Rwandan experience and life in Rwanda pre-genocide. We'll be traveling and visiting these museums to really focus on the colonial legacy, and the way that colonial powers shaped Rwanda and eventually leading to the genocide. Also, we've really tried to kind of balance the heaviness that is the study of a genocide with the experience of Rwandan culture. Okay. So yes, this is going to be a heavy experience, but I don't want you leaving Rwanda only having immersed yourself in the tragedy that occurred in 1994. The Rwandan culture is so beautiful and vibrant, and I want you to experience all of it. So we're going to try to balance it. Now, I will say it can feel a little jarring to one day be at a genocide memorial and the next day be on safari, for example. Um, there's going to be awkward emotions that come up. I've done trips like this many times with students. And again, the best thing to do is let's talk about it as a group. You want to talk one-on-one. Jonathan and I are going to be there. And I can guarantee we'll probably validate your feelings because we'll probably be having them too. But hopefully you feel that we're approachable in that sense, because that's what I always aim to do on these trips. On March 23rd, we'll visit the Kigali Genocide Memorial. So the Kigali Genocide Memorial is the largest genocide memorial in Rwanda. It is a large museum. Beyond just preservation, they do a lot of work on combating genocide denial and working on genocide prevention in other parts of the world. So we'll spend most of our day there. The next day, we'll go a little bit further outside of Kigali to two other genocide memorials, which unfortunately are both churches. And so we'll visit those two. They're about a 45-hour long drive outside of Kigali. Then on March 25th, we'll take a little break from genocide studies, and we're going to travel to Akegera, which is on the east side of the country. It'll take about 4 hours to get there from Kigali, so we'll travel there, and then we're going to do a cultural activity in the afternoon. Likely, that's one detail that I think we're still working through. Maybe banana beer. Banana beer is something that Rwanda is famous for, so we can watch a banana beer production. We may be watching cultural dancing. So there's lots of different things that we could do that day. And then on March
And then a
26th,
little
oh,
night
sorry, go ahead,
cruise,
Scott.
a little boat cruise that.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting about that. March 25th. Yes, at night, we're going to do a little boat cruise. There's a lake in the national park right near where we're going to be staying, and we'll do a little boat cruise that night. And then on the 26th, we're going to have a full day for safari. I always tell students, like, there are no, I mean, I've only been on safari with students once, but I did just go with my kids, and I'll tell you, there's no guarantee with safari. So I always like, don't get too excited or get mad at Jonathan and I if you don't see everything you want to see. But no doubt, any safari is amazing, and I think it'll be a phenomenal experience for all of you. Then on the 27th, we will travel back to Kigali from Akagera, and we'll have meetings with NGOs. So one of the NGOs, for example, that we will meet with is called SURF. They're an organization that works with survivors of sexual violence committed during the genocide. And not just the survivors themselves, but the generations of children that have come after them. So in some cases, we have 2 generations of people that have come after those survivors. And unfortunately, many of these people have been socially ostracized and are struggling with accessing the justice system, accessing the health system, et cetera. And so that's going to be an NGO we're going to meet with to talk about kind of that experience. And then on the 28th, we also will have other meetings, and then you'll have some free time to perhaps go shopping, get some souvenirs, visit a market. And then on the 29th, we'll depart. Okay. So that's overall, I could talk for a lot longer, but that's overall the plan for the travel. And these are just some pictures. So Kigali is a large, very safe city. I've been there many times. It's beautiful. You know, Rwanda is known as the land of 1,000 hills, and there's just rolling hills as far as the eye can see. It's just gorgeous. And these are 2 of the genocide memorials. So something that we'll likely talk about in class is memorialization, and why memorialization is really important in any transitional justice community. And the challenge that is in every country, and that is funding memorialization. Rwanda in many ways is really a phenomenal example to the rest of the world, including the United States, that could really use some more memorials for atrocities that have occurred here. So we'll talk about the challenges, and we'll compare the Kigali Genocide Memorial with some of the others. But those are just 2 of them that we'll see. This is Akagera. I've been to Akagera twice now. It's just a beautiful place. It's a very large national park, like I said, on the east side of the country. And I think you're gonna have just a wonderful time.
And I'm going to go into some logistics about kind of application and cost and all that, but any questions from any of you about like the actual structure of the course, the topic, the itinerary, places that you'll go, things you'll do? This is a good time to ask Liz about any of those that you might have. And you can just unmute, ask a question, or put something in the chat.
I do have a question.
Go for it.
Where will we be staying?
Oh, great question. I should have said that. I get so excited about the substance, Shemaya, that I forgot to mention that. So we'll be staying in hotels, and we'll be staying as a group. So Jonathan and I will be with you for the entirety of the program. Scott, do we give the names of the hotels at this point?
I mean, we're still kind of confirming them, but they're
Yeah.
going to be like nice hotels. One in Kigali, and then there's going to be a different sort of right outside the game preserve, or in it even, a kind of a lodge hotel there as well. Yep. And you'll have roommates, so it'll be like 2 people to a room kind of a situation. Other questions about the time abroad, places you're going in there? All right. And we'll have still time for questions at the end. I'll kind of go into the next couple slides here. So how to apply. Some of you have already started your application, so wonderful if you have. But if you haven't, please make sure to do that right away. The application deadline is November 1st. So to do the application, you just go to the study abroad page, find the first year abroad Rwanda program, and there's going to be a big blue button that says apply now. Click on that. And there's just a handful of questions. So it's just like 4 or 5 questions about why you're interested in the program, what you want to get from it. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not like long essays. They're just sort of short answer questions. And then after everybody has applied, Jonathan and Liz will do some brief group interviews. This is not like a high pressure interview situation. It's meeting with 3 or 4 students at a time, asking a handful of questions, having time for question and answers, just again to get to know everybody. And then we will let everybody know if you've been accepted or not. We can take up to 20 students on the program. We are hopeful that we'll be able to accept as many people as possible who apply on the program, but we'll let you know then sort of in mid-November if you've been accepted or not. And then at the same time, we will also let you know if you got a scholarship. There is no separate application to apply for our study abroad scholarships. As long as you apply to the program by November 1st, you will automatically be considered for the scholarships that we award. So you don't have to fill out anything extra. We base those scholarships on 2 things. It's on your financial need and your academics. So for financial need, we talk to the financial aid office and we get information from them about your specific financial need. And then we look at your GPA. As most of you are going to be first year students, you don't have a GPA yet. So we actually work with the admissions office and look at your high school grades. So it's a combination of your high school grades and your financial need that we determine scholarship awards. Our smallest scholarships are already $1,000. So even if you get one of the smaller scholarships, it's $1,000 off your program. And some of the larger scholarships go all the way up to almost the full cost of the program. So I always tell people, and there's no application fee or anything. So apply to the program, see if you get accepted, see if you get a scholarship and how much that might be. And then you can decide what you want to do. Once we let you know if you've been accepted and how much scholarship funding you did or didn't get, you've then got a couple of weeks to make your decision. So if you decide at that point you're not interested and you don't want to move forward, you just let us know and that's all. But if you do, then we move forward with getting you registered and all of that. We will register you in the classwork for this program. So as you're getting ready to register for your winter quarter classes right now, I'd suggest 1 of 2 things. Either leave some space in your schedule for this coursework, or just register in another course as a backup, like another focal point seminar, LSP 112 or some other class. And then once you're accepted and decided you want to move forward, you can just drop that class and then we'll put you in this one instead. And it will be a total of 6 credits. You get 4 credits for the focal point seminar class, and then an extra 2 credits for that time that you spend abroad. And those 2 credits will just be extra credits that go toward your electives. So if you want to avoid paying extra tuition, just make sure that you don't register yourself in more than 12 credit hours for winter. Because if you are registered in 12 credits, so say 3 different 4-credit classes, then we'll put you in the 6 credits for the study abroad program, and that would put you at 18, and you don't have to pay extra tuition. If you have more than 18 credit hours in a quarter, any quarter at DePaul, you pay extra tuition for that. So the way to avoid extra tuition is just make sure that you're only at 12 credit hours at maximum, and then we'll put you in the coursework. And then in terms of the cost of the program, we're finalizing the last few parts of the program. We're going to have the program fee set in the next week or so, hopefully. But we have a pretty good idea. The price is going to be somewhere around $3,500 to $3,800 once we kind of get the hotels confirmed and the final activities nailed down. The nice thing is it includes almost everything. It is your round trip airfare to and from Rwanda. It's all of your accommodations. It is good, 2/3 of your meals. It's going to be all your breakfasts and lunches as well as a couple dinners. So you only need money for a handful of dinners and some personal money along the side. It also includes all of your course activities, your excursions, our on-site transportation. You're going to have international travel and health insurance. So it really covers almost everything for the program. And like I said, those scholarships, and we do have some pretty good funding for the first year students, can range anywhere from $1,000 up to almost the full cost of the program. All right. And then in terms of getting in touch, like I said, I'm the one to contact if you've got questions about kind of how the application process works or cost or logistical questions. If you have any questions about the course and what you're going to do while you're abroad, Liz is happy to answer those questions for you as well. And now we'll just kind of have a little moment to take some questions from folks. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And what questions might people have that we have not covered?
For the interview, what type of attire would we need?
Oh, it is, like I said, this is not a formal interview. This is just going to be, it's Liz and Jonathan and a few students at a time having a chance to chat. So you don't have to worry about dressing up or anything like that. It's just a chance for them to get to know you a little bit better. You all, it's great that you're here. They've actually gotten a chance to like see you a little bit. But for some of the students, they will have never met them before. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that. You just need to show up and be ready to just chat for half an hour.
But Jules, brownie points for asking because it's always great to ask.
I have a
And
question.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. What were you
no,
gonna
go
say?
ahead. No, go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. So if our scholarship is like not covering the full thing, um, like what can we do about the remaining costs? Like, is it just our
Yeah.
tuition or like?
Yeah, a couple of things, I mean, part of it is, do you have some savings or do you have family that can help pay for that? You can also talk to the financial aid office and they can set you up on a payment plan where you can take that money and they'll have a payment plan where you can pay in smaller installments in the months ahead.
Mhm.
There are chances sometimes where they also may be able to increase one of your loans. So maybe you have a loan, like a Parent Plus loan, and they can increase that by a little bit to help cover the cost of the study abroad program. We also have students who will do crowdfunding where they do like a GoFundMe page and send it out to friends and family and try to get some donations from them and can raise a little bit of money that way. And there are also a bunch of other external scholarships out there. So if you're able to find something, and we have a scholarship page on our Study Abroad website as well, that gives links to a lot of those external scholarships. So that's also something that you could look into as well to see if that might be a way to help finance it. But it's, for a lot of students, it's sort of a combination of those things, sort of, cobbling it together in the way that they can make it work. So. And I wanted to take a quick second. I'm going to reshare my screen too. One thing I did realize that we didn't show was just a map of
Oh, right.
Rwanda. So let me do that. And Liz, you can maybe talk a little. So as we look at the continent of Africa, that is where Rwanda is located. And then as we look, oh, that is a small map. So let's see, can we get a little bit bigger one here? Oh my goodness, every map is very small that I'm bringing up here. So there we go. I'll just do this one. So.
Perfect. Yeah, so Rwanda is in East Africa, obviously. And we're going to be in Kigali, which is essentially central Rwanda. And then when we travel to the two memorials outside of the city, those are both south of Kigali, about an hour south. So we'll be going in that direction. And then Akagera, you can see on the east border, again, bordering with Tanzania, but that's where we'll be for the safari. And then again, back to Kigali after that.
What other questions?
I actually I actually wanted to ask about the visa. Is it like visa on arrival, or do we have to apply a couple months before?
Yeah, with you, well, as an international student, you may have a different visa requirement than an American student. And so that's something where I will work directly with you to see if you may need a visa or not. And if so, I can help supply some of the documents you might need for your visa. And we'll work together as you kind of get that sorted out. Liz, will you talk about for everybody who would be an American student?
Yeah, so there is a visa on arrival. You can do either or. You can apply before you travel. But also you can do a visa upon arrival. And one thing I would say, I probably should have said this at the start, is just a reminder to everybody to look at their visa, or I'm sorry, look at their passport. So first of all, if you don't have a passport, it takes a while to get a passport. So I would start that process soon. And then additionally, those that have passports, those passports can expire and we can forget. So make sure that your passports are not going to expire. And I believe for Rwanda, you need 6 months validity past the point of travel. So this trip is going to take place in March. You need 6 months past March in your validity of your passport in order to travel. And in terms of if you haven't gotten a visa in a country upon arrival, what that just means is when you land in the country, you will stand in an immigration line, and you will proceed through the line, and then they'll ask for you to pay for it. We'll talk more about those details in the class itself, probably in Global Hour. What we'll recommend is that everybody have cash ready to go just to make it easy, and then you'll pay the cash. They give you a nice little sticker for your passport, has Rwanda on it, and then you will proceed through the next line where they'll ask you the normal immigration questions. Why are you here? Things like that. And then when you leave, they'll look at that sticker again, and that is all that you need to do in order to obtain a visa. If you want to obtain a visa before arriving in Rwanda, you can do so online. I've done both before. I'm a type A, so I like to have those things with me when I get on the ground, but either way works.
Liz, you mentioned during when you were talking about the lessons, you
Yeah.
mentioned the sexual violence prosecuted as an act of genocide. Can you please
Yeah.
explain that a little bit more?
Sure. And I'm pausing here because Jules, this is a specific area that I specialize in, and so it's hard for me. But I don't want to launch into a 2-hour discussion of this, so I'll try to be brief. Up until really the creation of the ICTY and the ICTR, the international community viewed sexual violence committed during conflict as essentially an unavoidable consequence of war, right? Meaning it's something unfortunate that happens, but there's nothing we can do to prevent it. And if we're going to prosecute crimes after a conflict, it's not going to be something we're going to prosecute. And so we see that change with the drafting of the ICTY and the ICTR statutes. We see sexual violence included, not explicitly in the definition of genocide, but included, we certainly progressed since the drafting of the Geneva Conventions, which were drafted right after the Second World War. And it's really through some female prosecutors at the ICTR that start pushing to say, if we are trying to prosecute crimes and bring justice and create a historical memory, an accurate historical record of the acts that occurred in the Rwandan genocide, sexual violence was a huge part of this. And by failing to acknowledge that, we're not doing our work. And we'll get more into the details of that battle because it was a huge battle. But what we eventually see in that first conviction of genocide is Akeyesu was prosecuted for rape as a crime of genocide or as an act of genocide. And really has really created a whole line of jurisprudence now in international criminal law where this is a widely accepted point of law. And so Rwanda, the ICTR really created that legacy. So such an important piece.
And this is all the stuff that you're going to really dig into in class. So
Yeah. And I say too, I've taught on these topics now for, God, over a decade. I need to stop saying how long I've been teaching. I'm starting to get to the age where it's making me feel old. But these are tough topics to talk about. They're uncomfortable. I think that I do so in a way where I'm not trying to be particularly provocative or to, I really try to do so in a respectful way, but I also acknowledge that it can be really challenging material to work through. So if you need to take a step out of class, you need to take a break. I'm happy to talk through those pieces with you. But because it is, even when we're not talking about sexual violence, the other pieces we're talking about is, their genocidal acts. So if you're a little apprehensive about the subject matter material, again, I'm always happy to chat one-on-one as you're kind of debating through kind of how you may experience this class. But I think I would say if you're here, you must have a drive to learn about the genocide, and I would strongly encourage you to push yourself a bit to sit with some of the uncomfortableness that this class will be. And we will have fun along the way too. It won't be all heavy.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we wrap up? And we'll stick around too if you've got a personal individual one you want to ask. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And if you have not started your application, or if you've started it but have not submitted it yet, make sure to get going on that in the next couple of weeks and reach out to us if you have any questions.